A lot of hype cycles and viral clips, but how should we really feel about how JJ McCarthy is doing in training camp? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is very fun. We have the first of hopefully a few episodes with Tyler Forno, who will be at camp. Plenty of days throughout this training camp. First-hand account of what's going on, and we can ask the questions we really want to ask of him rather than like hoping we get lucky and the right person reports it right. We can get a little bit more direct. So that'll be most of the show, is a conversation with Tyler. We will talk a little bit about JJ McCarthy, some DB stuff, Dallas Turner and all that. Well, we talked about Dallas Turner yesterday, so actually, no, we didn't do that one. But that interview was recorded before Tuesday's practice. So it doesn't have anything to do with what he went on Monday. So it's about Monday's practice. But on Tuesday's practice, reports are that JJ McCarthy had a little bit more of a down day. It was kind of due. He was having a couple of really, really nice days or quiet days where it was kind of the headline was about something else. But it's not wholly surprising that you're going to have a down day too. In fact, if there wasn't one, I would start to get concerned that they're not challenging him enough. I guess that sort of raises the question of how should we be reacting to these, day in and day out training camp reports? There's always going to be a couple of, really fun highlights or really bad lowlights or whatever kind of the most extreme thing is what's going to get posted online and go viral. And then that's crazy. So when we do get to, if you do get to go to camp, which I still recommend you go to that, even though that's not where I'm going anymore because I got to fly for it. But if you do get to camp and you see what you see from JJ McCarthy, what can we actually take something away from, and what is just sort of, it's camp and it's practice, right? And I think the answer is about the long term. And by long term, I'm referring to, the course of days, not years. But the kind of day in and day out patterns that you see. If you see, Zemiah Vaughn has become the sort of underdog, is this guy going to make the roster dude in camp? He's having a great camp because he's putting it together every single day. And I remember thinking that to a much more extreme degree, but it was the same thing with Ivan Pace in his in his rookie year camp. It was like, whoa, this dude's bringing it every day. This dude is doing all this stuff every single day. Versus, I remember one time, this is a deep, deep, deep cut. In 2018 was the one year that I actually managed to get a press credential and got to be on the sideline. It was cool. And I remember being really impressed with a corner, but I didn't know who he was because I didn't remember who 24 was that year. It was Horace Richardson, SMU legend. How about that for a deep cut? And he had this really, really, really awesome day. And I remember thinking in my mind, wow, Horace Richardson's great. He was playing with the second team, which was pretty crazy as a guy that was supposed to be more of a long shot. And I was like, I was putting him in 53-man roster projections and stuff off of that. But it was really one day. And I way overreacted to one day. It was a lesson learned, right? With Ivan Pace, or that same year, Jordan Addison was doing it, right? And you're like, wow, Jordan Addison is making awesome plays, looks, really, really good. He's the only one that looks like he can really keep up with Justin Jefferson, and he's doing it day in and day out, day in and day out. That's probably something that is pretty intuitive to you. I probably don't have to tell you that things that happen one day and then go away don't really matter. But I think that is a useful sort of check against yourself where you're going, okay, if you're worried that you're overreacting to something, are you saying, this is who the guy is forever, or is it a one-day thing? And if you're worried that you're overreacting to something, you can say, okay, well, let's see if it happens again tomorrow. There's a nice little thing to fall back on there. So with JJ McCarthy, that's really the deal, right? And it works both ways. When he showed up, first day of camp and he had this awesome day, he was totally dealing. First day open to fans, awesome day, totally dealing. And you go, oh, wow, he did that again. Excellent. But now he's had a struggle of a day. By the way, the definition of JJ McCarthy struggling for a day is he missed a couple in the red zone. That's not any bit of a struggle that you would like super worry about, unless day in and day out it starts to happen where JJ McCarthy's just good for like 3 or 4 misses on balls he should have hit, right? But camp has been saturated with way more tight windows, really nice throws, good deep balls. And then he shows up for one day and he has a bad one. But if it turns out to just be a bad one and he's back to great stuff on Wednesday, then, it becomes really, really easy to forget, right? The most important day is the next one. So that cuts, very much both ways. A bad day doesn't matter if it's followed by 10 good days. A good day doesn't matter if it's followed by 10 bad days. A couple other notes from Tuesday's practice. So they were in shells and they had a vet day for a bunch of people. So Ryan Kelly didn't play. Harrison Smith didn't play. You got like Michael Juergens in there. You had like Jay Ward and Theo Jackson were the safeties. Josh Metellus gets the day off. He's still dealing with his ankle thing, although he was pretty ready to go. Chaz Chambliss is back, by the way. I don't know if anybody's told you about that. I think Emily Liker put it in her write-up about camp. But he was put on PUP to start camp. He's back, so we're doing great there. And otherwise, it was sort of a blasé day in the first place because a bunch of players weren't playing and they weren't even in full pads. So we're back to full pads Wednesday, and we're back to full rosters and all that. And then, we'll continue to see. But it's also nice to see a defensive, the defense have a day, right? There was one, it was a red zone throw to Jordan Addison. I believe it was JJ McCarthy on the throw. I didn't quite get a look when I saw the clip, but I would assume that it was a JJ McCarthy. It was a really nice throw, face mask or higher, caught right above his head. But Okudah, who was playing from Jeff Okudah, who was playing from trail position in that one, pokes it right out and causes an incompletion with just a really, really great play on the ball. And it's like, I'm not mad at anybody on that whole play, right? Maybe I'm mad at Jordan Addison. I wish that you had held that one a little bit tighter, but like somebody's got to win that rep, right? You're either going to be mad at Okudah or mad at Addison. And I don't necessarily think you need to enter a training camp practice play saying, all right, I'm going to be mad at someone this time. You must be mad at one person each play. Like that's probably not the most productive way to go about it. But those are the kinds of plays that like happen sometimes. And then there are plays I think it was a tight end screen where Will Fries, who by the way is working back in 11 on 11s in the shells practice. We'll see if he's still doing it in the padded practice, but it sounded like his leg injury had completely healed up by the time camp started. And it was more about acclimation and stuff. Importantly, he did come back. Donovan Jackson did not start rotating at left guard as far as I understood. So it seems like the line is that the 5 that we expected it to be with Donovan Jackson at left guard and Will Fries at right guard, Blake Brandel backing up, a couple different positions there. But so he takes it, I think it was Jonathan Harris, just like totally to the cleaners. And with that one, it's like, all right, like you can dig all the context and you can kind of realize that that's a more expected result. Okay, Will Fries did a good screen block. I expect that. Jonathan Harris couldn't stand up to Will Fries. I'm not mad at him for it. And you can move on from there, even though it was one of the more like visually visceral reps of the practice. But you don't need to hear me talk about clips that you can also watch right now. How about a guy who was there who can give you a little bit more exclusive information? That'll be with Tyler, and that'll be next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back, and you are ready to fire up that Yahoo Fantasy app, get that draft going, get some research going right away. This year, everybody, all right, you, me, your grandma, she plays fantasy. You don't know about that? Oh, yeah. She's a shark. We're all playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. It is a smooth app that works well. The draft process is very smooth. It'll help give you alerts to make sure that you don't accidentally miss your pick. It's easy to scroll and browse when you're on the clock or if you're trying to make a quick waiver claim in the middle of the season or something like that. All of it is very intuitive, and that is why they've been going strong for 28 years. And to celebrate those 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August 4th. Stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. All right, we are here with Tyler Fornes, friend of the pod, draft guy, also camp attendee, training camp goer. Tyler, what's up? How you doing? How's the weather up there?
It's getting kind of hot. We had some gnarly thunderstorms the last couple days,
It's
but
gonna be sticky.
oh yeah, my wife decided to grow flowers on the side of the house. The sunflowers are took a little bit of a hit, so I got to try and find a way to fix those. Well, they're not dead; they're just angled now, so we just got to find a way to stand them back up. But otherwise, really can't complain too much. We're not living in Siberia.
Speaking of things that are not dead but just damaged, podcaster camp coverage. Tyler, you were in the stands on Monday, so you saw the practice that the first fully padded practice that everybody's been talking about. We talked about Dallas Turner yesterday, so I'm going to put that aside, and instead, how did JJ McCarthy look?
So this is going to sound really weird, but he just looked okay. And I think part of that is just our expectations are, hey, this is the rookie quarterback. We want to see him look really good. And there was some good stuff. There really wasn't anything bad. It was just kind of a, hey, we got through this practice. We saw a couple good things and we saw some stuff that needed to improve on, especially in the 2-minute drill at the end of practice where I'm going to be real. The defense looked like maybe the best unit of all time. And they just absolutely collapsed everything on offense. McCarthy couldn't do anything. It was pretty incredible. But consistency was one of my big things that I wanted to watch for. How is McCarthy doing with the little things? How is he doing?
Like we only get clips from afar, and that's only going to be the fun stuff. So like, how is it like down to down to down to down?
I'm going to be honest. Like a lot of the individual passing drills, he looked really crisp, good mechanics. He's still got a little bit of that leg swing that I know we've talked about before, but it's much more under control. And that was one of the big things for me when it came to his deep ball coming out, because you knew he had the arm strength. You knew he had a whip, but the ball just would not carry the way you wanted it to when he threw really deep. I think that's been somewhat fixed. And to me, that was a really positive sign because when he was throwing those deep balls, it's not dying on him 5 yards short. It's carrying the distance that you really wanted to. And sometimes the balls still end up a tad short, but I don't think that's a cause of any real concern. Even the best deep ball quarterbacks lay it up just a little bit every once in a while. So I was really, really impressed by that. I did think probably the one really exciting thing was he hit the honey hole, the cover 2 hole. And
this was the Lucky Jackson one that I think we saw a lot of clips on social media of it. That was just like in this really tight window. Theo Jackson almost made the play. Are you talking about that one?
Yeah. And I'm wondering if Theo Jackson actually would have made the play if this was a real game, because it was hard to see from my purview, but it almost felt like Jackson intentionally
like trying not to hit. Yeah, maybe.
But he's willing to take that throw, and I think he's got the arm to make that throw. And I think to me that was the biggest takeaway, because if you can unlock something like the honey hole, that allows you to really hit every blade of grass and make things more difficult for a defense. And I was really impressed with that. Just a lot of it's just simple, basic stuff that's boring, minutia, but none of it was a concern. And I think that's a really good sign as we continue moving toward the regular season.
Yeah. Quarterback is not a position made of highlights. You and I have talked a lot about that with draft stuff, especially. But like, it's so hard in practice because everything is this like curated situation from like the situational drills, but even like wide receiver DB one-on-ones, cool. There's no inside help. There's no help over the top. There's no other defender. You have to like throw it under or like squeeze into a window or anything like that. So like those throws just kind of become jugs machine analysis of a quarterback, which I think most quarterbacks with no pressure and no additional defenders can be decent jugs machines. You'll even see Sam Howell and Brett Rippon hit most of those throws, right? Actually, how are those? Did you get a sense for who's looking better out of the three, like vying for the QB2 job?
So I'm going to be real. I didn't notice Brett Rippon at all. I know he made some throws in individual drills. I don't think he got anything in team because it was almost exclusively McCarthy, Howell. Then I did see Max Brosmer get one series. He threw an interception, but then his last play, he had a really, really nice like He escaped from the pocket and threw on the run and hit Miles Price up the sideline for probably like a 25 yard gain. It was really nice to see from him because he didn't do a ton of escapability stuff at Minnesota. And then obviously he was at New Hampshire before that, but showing that little bit during practice when you don't get a lot of opportunities to throw the football, I thought was really huge for him. I think Howell's got this QB2 job. It feels like on relative lockdown because, like I said, I didn't notice Rippon. Maybe he got in for one of those drives and I just completely missed it because I was writing an article during practice. But
Okay.
it just feels like Howell's number 2 from where I'm sitting. And it would not shock me if Brosmer ended up being number 3 because of some of that pre-existing relationship from the University of Minnesota and how Kevin O'Connell has that rapport with PJ Fleck. And I think
that I want to push back on you on that because like Minnesotans have a relationship with the University of Minnesota. Kevin O'Connell does not.
Well, that's not entirely
he
true.
knows PJ. He knows a lot of college coaches though, and they have a relationship with Brett Rippon dating back to last year. So if we're gonna go with like the more familiar option, it would be Rippon. It feels like if what you're saying is true and you didn't just miss it, which it sounds like that's a possibility. So everybody, grain of salt. If Brosmer is getting more opportunities than Brett Rippon, it's like to me. Doing what he did on that one play, hey, you got one play and you made a really cool one is how it starts. That's how you get a foothold and you prove to, Josh McCown, hey, let me see him try that again. Let me give him one or two more. And you take that one or two more away from Brett Rippon. That's how you start to get a foothold and start to claw your way past another guy on the depth chart. You have to make the most. You have to make a really cool play and you kind of only get a couple chances to do it. But I would, I don't know. Like it says Tomowo didn't make the team, didn't get any special treatment. I don't feel like Gophers get special treatment in Minnesota just because they're Minnesota.
I don't think so either, but I'm going off of a little bit of a different path. And I don't know if you ended up reading this or not, Luke, but the relationship with kind of like Brosmer started at the pro day in 2024 when Brosmer, who had just transferred in, ended up being the quarterback that threw to all those guys. And O'Connell got to know him a little bit and then got to obviously know him more through the pre-draft process, again, going to the Gopher Pro Day. So I'm not going to sit here and say that relationship is going to earn Brosmer a roster spot. But what I am saying is I'm less confident in just Brett Rippon having a stronghold on it, where I think Rippon might be the kind of guy you can sneak on to the practice squad maybe a little easier than someone like Brosmer, who I think will play well enough during the preseason.
This is undrafted territory here.
Isn't. But I would prefer. And
nobody's poaching Max Brosmer. Chill.
Hey, nobody thought Tyler Thigpen would get poached either. Who knows? But
oh my God, did you just reach back like 13 years for that? When did that happen? Please.
I'm saying nobody really knows anything, and including me here. My read on it is I feel like the Vikings will want to have another young guy to really develop in that room and have that extra veteran like a Rippon more on the practice squad, and especially you have the benefit of Brosmer being cheaper. I like $300,000, but it's still cheaper.
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to say too. I don't think you have a fourth QB in this building. You get 3 in the roster and you get 1 inactive or like active for free on game day. That's 3 deep. I don't know if you need to keep all 4 of these guys in the building on the practice squad either, but that's a conversation for another day. It sounds like the conclusion is that QB2 looks like it's maybe not so much a competition at all. That's Sam Howell. And the QB3 is where the real competition is. I think these guys are competing, and I think one of them does get thrown out on the street.
I think so too. I do think QB being on the practice squad is still kind of likely, mainly because you have 16 spots, and having 16 spots allows you, especially with a guy like McCarthy. Do you want Sam Howell to be your only veteran voice in the room that's not a coach? I think that's a real question. Obviously, Josh McCown
I think that's fine.
Josh McCown's a different kind of quarterback coach because he was in the league for nearly 20 years as a player. But it would be interesting as far as a contemporary if they want to trust Sam Howell with that responsibility. I'm not saying he can't do it or he'd be bad at it, but do you want another one in the room?
I will say last year they did not have another quarterback and on the practice squad. They did have McCarthy in the building kind of as a guy not on the 53 but in the room, and they ended up with 5 QBs in the room that way, but they didn't get a QB on the practice squad until Daniel Jones joined, which was about something else.
Yes.
Okay, enough of this backup QB stuff. I also have questions about this sort of wide receiver second. There's a lot of intrigue going on with especially with Justin Jefferson out and leaving the depth chart open. So we'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by the 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings grape, ginger, and lime flavor into a quick, energizing shot, and it is perfect for when you are out there on the golf course. I used to work at a golf course. I worked at the Wilds when I was in high school, and this was only a few years after 5-Hour Energy first hit the market. And there is, as with any golf course, you get to like holes 15, 16, and there's this sort of lull where you start to get a little tired. And 5-Hour Energy was like all the rage as the thing you would get right in that kind of middle of the back nine to make sure you stayed sharp and energized. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com. That is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off of your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. Moving along here with the Locked On Vikings podcast. Thank you so much coming and hanging out, checking out Locked On Vikings every single day. Here with Tyler Fornes, who was at camp, who's giving me he's doing the camp correspondent thing. We did a little of this last year, so thank you again, Tyler, for giving us some of your time. The next question I have, so you had some interesting thoughts on the corners in particular, but there's one guy that I keep hearing the name of, and I'm really curious to hear if you think it's real. And it's Zemaiah Vaughn. Zemaiah Vaughn, undrafted rookie, kind of flashed at OTAs. All the beat is talking about how this guy kind of looks good. He keeps making plays. He's like playing with the twos. Is this dude like making a real push for the team? And if so, what does that mean for Dwight McGlothern?
I'm going to be honest. I was just as impressed with McGlothern as I was with Vaughn. Vaughn, I do think, is making a real push to make the team. Isaiah Rodgers missed practice, and he missed it, I believe, on Saturday as well. Kevin O'Connell just said as we're recording this, he's dealing with something pretty minor.
Okay.
So we saw Blackman really get some work with the ones, but I saw Vaughn only working with the twos. A UDFA only working with the twos at this point in camp is noteworthy in itself. So not going with the threes with guys like Keenan Garber, I thought was really interesting. I also thought that he covered pretty dang well. He's staying with guys in the hip pocket. And the lateral movement skills, which he did not test well at all, he seems to be moving just fine and being able to get into those throwing windows and make contested plays happen. McGlothern had a really, really nice interception when he's covering Rondale Moore, and Moore's trying to run a comeback route, and he stops before Moore does and just gets right in front of it, makes one of the easiest interceptions I've ever seen in a practice setting. I'm really, really impressed with both of these guys. They're both kind of the same idea. They're both tall, long, skinny, great linear explosiveness, not so great when it comes to the lateral stuff. So it's interesting that both high priority UDFAs have that same mold over the last couple of years, but I think both of them have a real path to make the roster.
Yeah, and that bottom of the cornerback group is wide open.
Mm-hmm.
I think in our like 53, I don't remember what you did because you did like 50. You've done a couple 53 man like prediction things.
I had both those guys making the team.
Yeah, so last time I did it, I did as well, but it was after OTAs, and I was like, this Zemaiah Vaughn guy got a lot of hype, so I'm going to put him in mine, and I'm going to remove like Tavier Thomas, who's a little shorter. I think the redundancy of body type is actually a good thing in your depth. Like, oh no, they're both bigger. Like that's great, good, yes. I don't think we need to we do this on wide receiver sometimes where like, well, you got to have a shifty short guy and you got to have a tall contested catch guy and you got to have a possession guy and you got like, no, you can have 3 of the same kind of dude. And that's great. That's awesome. Look at Miami. They've got 3 fast guys, like good. that works. So I think like redundancy is this overrated problem. But that would make the room. And my next question is about the CB3 job, but that would make the room Byron Murphy, Isaiah Rodgers, Mekhi Blackmon, Jeff Okudah, Zamaya Vaughn, Dwight McGlothern. Is there anybody on the team is there anybody on the field right now that is like super conspicuously excluded from that if that's a CB room of 6?
I don't think so. Tavier Thomas would probably
Tavier Thomas, was the guy I had initially, like pre OTAs, immediately post draft 53. That then was the one I removed when Zamaya Vaughn started getting hype.
One of the interesting things about Thomas is he's primarily a slot guy.
Yeah.
The Vikings don't seem to want to have a slot corner where they have Byron Murphy, who in nickel packages, they'll kick inside to the slot, or they'll go big nickel and they'll have Josh McTellis in the slot. But they don't seem to want to have a slot-only cornerback. And I worry about that for Thomas's long-term roster possibility with this team.
It's probably a ding. I do think so. Like the local beat has been reporting for years that they do prefer to have Byron Murphy on the outside. They don't want him on the inside exclusively out of necessity. So that's why they've projected certain cornerback draft picks or whatever, or that. So it kind of makes sense. Like, hey, if you bring in Tavier Thomas and he plays well enough to get on the field and he can be your slot, and then Byron Murphy can play outside, like they would want that. But it kind of just always ends up that they've got Byron Murphy on the inside when they get into nickel packages. But I think maybe one of the most intriguing things in this camp is the CB3 battle. Mekhi Blackmon and Jeff Okudah are. I completely misread that one. I thought that Jeff Okudah would be a depth player that maybe has a chance to like have a renaissance or whatever, but he seems to have the inside track to starting. I thought he was exclusively playing CB3. It turns out that's not true, right? That Mekhi Blackmon has gotten some, but how's that battle going?
So I think some of it got a little murky with the injury to Isaiah Rodgers.
Sure.
Where I didn't see Okudah once with the second team. I did see Mekhi Blackmon with the second team.
Okay, so Okudah was still exclusively with the ones with Isaiah Rodgers out.
Yes.
Okay.
And the one interesting thing about Okudah is, and Brian Flores talked about it before practice yesterday, really, he was asked just straight up, why do you think Okudah hasn't stuck with another team? And Flores gave the diplomatic answer, well, I'm not in those buildings, so I can't speak about that, but I can just tell you what I've seen since he's been here. And he talked about him like he was a coach's dream, just a film junkie, always looking to put in more work, always looking to improve, always looking to do those little things. And that kind of stuff is going to get you favor with any coaching staff and front office because you're willing to put in the work. Plus, he's got incredibly fluid hips. He's very fast. And I think that's kind of what separates him from like Shaq Griffin and Stephon Gilmore. He can actually carry and run with some of these really fast receivers where the other two, that was a pretty big struggle. Now, can he do the rest of the stuff? I'm not convinced. But he's got the athleticism and speed to be able to do some of those things. That was a big problem when the Vikings did choose to go man, because Griffin and Gilmore couldn't carry very much anymore because they were in their 30s. Okudah still got that juice. So if you're able to kind of, as you talked about in your earlier show this week, Luke, if they can kind of get that out of him and eliminate some of the stuff where he's putting himself in those disadvantages.
Just be normal. Just play. Like, you don't have to take those risks. Just play it safe a little more. And he could, he definitely has the like hip fluidity and then the acceleration to like turn and run even with really, really fast receivers.
He did it with Xavier Worthy last year. And that dude ran a 4.21.
Yeah. It's just a matter of not getting beat on the release. That is a big concern to me. Like, I want the Vikings to be able to go press man. I don't really trust Okudah to go press man unless I start seeing him do exactly that. Keep that cushion, take that back pedal. But so the way it sounds, though, just in a depth chart analysis sense, it sounds like the room really is Byron Murphy, Isaiah Rodgers, Jeff Okudah, Mekhi Blackmon. And nobody's rotating there. Even with Isaiah, I didn't realize Isaiah Rodgers was out. And so when you told me Mekhi Blackmon was with the ones, I was like, oh, so he is rotating in. But it sounds like I misinterpreted that it only was happening because of the injury to Isaiah Rodgers, and that Jeff Okudah now solely holds the CB2 position with Rodgers out, and Mekhi Blackmon comes up to CB3. Do I have that right now?
That's the vibe I got.
Okay.
I'm going to go to practice later this week and kind of see, hey, has anything evolved from that point? Is Blackmon going to get a little bit more run? But yeah, he really hasn't seemed to get much of any run at all from everything I've seen and then everything I've read as well, which is very interesting. And I'm wondering if they're just easing him back in because of the injury. But we're over a year removed from the injury at this point. The year anniversary would have been,
and he's been cleared since like April, so that it shouldn't be easing back in or anything like that. That would not be a valid excuse, I think.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's not a health thing, if maybe it's a confidence thing, and they're trying to ease him back up that way. Because look, when it comes to your ACL and that reconstruction, so much of it is a mental game. It's not physical at all. It's being able to trust it. And I'm curious if maybe some of that trust has kind of leaked into Blackmon's brain where he's just not all the way there yet. And we start to see him working in, or maybe this is just, hey, Okudah's number 3 and you have to just straight up beat him out. I think that development is going to be interesting.
Nothing he did his rookie year would like cement him as a starter. I don't think anybody really expected that. It was an up and down rookie year for Mekhi Blackmon. And then of course he misses last year. So I think putting him in that sort of rotational 3-4 area is absolutely appropriate. I think putting him CB4 exclusively beneath Jeff Okudah is what surprised me just because of the reputation. But we'll have to see how all of this really plays out. Tyler, do you have any other major nuggets or major things that you want to share today?
Yeah, I will say one guy that stood out to me was Dante Fleming, the Tulane wide receiver. Had 2 really nice deep ball catches in separate drills. One where they're just doing one-on-ones, and then he had one in team as well. And I thought having 2 of those could end up earning him some more opportunities, especially with Justin Jefferson being out and guys are kind of starting to slide up a little bit.
You're seeing Lucky Jackson with the ones and, Jalen Naylor's wide receiver 2. Yeah.
It makes sense that Jackson's getting some run with the ones at the wide receiver 3 spot. It's a completely wide open competition for those roster spots after Jalen Naylor. And that would have been what happened with Tristan Jackson a couple years ago. Lucky Jackson.
He's a Tristan. It's like you're 6th or 7th on the depth chart and then enough people leave and you can,
Mm-hmm. But I thought Fleming making 2 really nice plays like that could get him another couple of opportunities. And then to see how he builds on it. I was watching some Tulane tape earlier today for Darian Mensah, the quarterback who transferred to Duke. And Fleming had a couple really nice deep ball catches on his own right while I was watching that. So maybe there's something there. Maybe it's just an aberration. But that's why they have weeks and weeks of training camp, because they want to see how much of this is consistent, how much is a flash in the pan. But you have to start somewhere. And I thought he had a really good day.
Yeah. And something you and I have talked about offline a lot is like, back in the days when we would be there every day and you would see somebody have a good day and it would be kind of the thing of the day. And then they disappear for 3 or 4 days. And that good day just doesn't matter at all. Mm-hmm. The only way to really prove yourself is to do it day in and day out. And that's what we're going to be watching for. Tyler, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Great to be here.
Thanks again to Tyler for his time going out to camp, braving the stands for the sake of all of us. We will talk to him again over the course of this camp, but I will see you all tomorrow. And as always, Skol.